Found Duckling by EvaDragon, Chapter 10, Fruit Loop Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. Summary: The Daily Planet releases an article about Danny and Danny. Ross encounters Phantom. What do mad scientists and lost Drake twins have in common? An article by Clark Kent, Daily Planet. Ectobiology is defined as the study of ectoplasm and all its traits and properties. Ectoplasm, as the world has recently discovered, is what ghosts or ecto-entities are made out of. The reason for this discovery is due to doctors Jack Fenton and Madeline Fenton. These supposed doctors are ectobiologists. They received their PhD from the University of Wisconsin, where they published their thesis papers. The Doctors Fentons attacked the 77th emergency session of the United Nations General Assembly 2 days ago. The United Nations had been made aware of active laws in the United States and Canada which severely violated the Meta Protection Acts. These laws were termed the Anti-Ectoplasmic Control Acts, which stated that any humans or beings which produced, used, or were contaminated with ectoplasm were to be handed over to the Ghost Investigation Ward for containment, experimentation, and extermination. The whole reason that the Meta Protection Acts were passed were to prevent atrocities like this from happening. The Doctors Fentons claimed the United Nations had been manipulated by ghosts and that all ghosts were evil and wanting the end of the world. The Justice League was on the side to provide security for this session. Not only did the Doctors Fenton attack, but also did multiple agents or operatives of this so-called government agency, Ghost Investigation Ward. Flash, Nightwing, Martian Manhunter, and several other Justice League members worked on containing the aggressors. Superman restrained Jack Fenton, and Wonder Woman restrained Madeline Fenton. When Madeline Fenton tried to appeal to Wonder Woman turned her own reasoning against the Doctor. By the end of the meeting, the U.S. and Canada, as well as the majority of the UN, had voted to repeal the horrid Anti-Ectoplasmic Control Acts. During the investigation into the Doctors Fenton, it was discovered that they had 2 children. Their older child was college-aged and was already out of the house. This reporter reached out to her, and she was only too happy to speak to me. Although she did wish to remain anonymous, stating that she had legally changed her name due to not only how she wouldn't even call them her parents, she would only say their name, treated her growing up, but also how they treated her little brother. Growing up, there was lots of neglect. I can recognize now that how we grew up was not normal. Sure, I thought that maybe it was a little weird when I was there, but once I got out and started hanging around my friends here at college, I realized that they were borderline abusive and definitely downright neglectful. I basically raised my little brother. I brought him school clothes, I cooked him breakfast, I made sure that he did his homework, and when he got sick, I was the one who took care of him. Jack and Maddie were too busy in their lab that they never even noticed. And once the ghost attacks started, it got 10 times worse. And then my little brother, my sweet little brother, 4.5 months ago, he came out to them. 4 months ago, they tested his ectoplasm contamination levels. He apparently tested too high or some other bullshit. Excuse my language. And they tried to turn him over to the GIW. It just so happened on a week when I was home. Me and 2 of his friends got him out. We were able to rush a minor emancipation through the court system in Cook County. Then we packed him up and shipped him off to Gotham. He couldn't even contact me or his friends for fear that they would find him. For a few minutes, she just cries over the phone. I give her all the time she needs to compose herself. A week ago, I finally got a call from him. I got to see him, even if it was only a video call. He said he found his family. What do you mean he found his family? I asked. Just before Jack and Maddie pulled what they pulled, my little brother and I found out that he was actually adopted. It was the reason we actually sent him to Gotham. His birth family was from there. I was so happy for him, but I told him that he was still my brother no matter what. And how did he find his family, if you don't mind me asking? That's his story. Which brings me to Wayne Manor. I've interviewed more than one adoptee of Bruce Wayne. I had no idea it would be interviewing Tim Drake Wayne's younger siblings. a set of fraternal twins, Daniel James Drake Wayne and Danielle Jane Drake Wayne. Twins who had been separated at birth, an all too common story, and given up for adoption. Daniel, call me Danny, and Danielle, call me Danny, share a grin between themselves, seem a little nervous. Danny leans towards Tim, and Danny is leaning with Sandra Kane Wayne.
Danny, I talked to your sister.
She told me that your parents, Jack and Maddie, they're not my parents, he replied. There's a little venom in his voice, not that I could blame him. Parents who would not only kick their child out for being part of the LGBTQIA+ community, but also turn them over to a government agency that would condone experimentation on them do not deserve their child's love. Right, my apologies. She told me that Jack and Maddie adopted you. Let's start with that, shall we? Danny nods and Tim squeezes his hand. So Jack and Maddie were in Egypt for one of their ghost hunts. This was way before ghosts were even proven to be real. They met another couple there. This couple was Jack and Janet Drake. Jack and Janet were on some kind of archaeological contract dig and couldn't come back to the States for a while. Janet ended up pregnant with me and Danny. Jack and Janet didn't want the babies, but Jack and Maddie only wanted one of them. That's how I ended up with the Fentons. Danny ended up with another couple, but as soon as they got back to the States, they dumped her in the foster system. Danny takes up the story from that point. I was basically like a foster family bingo card. Every few weeks to months, I would be dumped to another family. Sometimes I would go as long as 6 months. That's why I'm not in the same grade as Danny. My schooling got so messed up as a consequence of jumping around so much. Sometimes I was homeschooled, but the fosters didn't always update the systems like they should have. And when I did attend a regular school, I wasn't there long enough to affect anything like a GPA or finish a grade level or anything. I'm just thankful that the placement test that Gotham Academy let me take has me at the 9th grade level and not lower. I would be mortified if I was any further behind my brother. Hey, you're not stupid. You can't help that the foster system is vastly underfunded and underprepared and overpopulated, that cases like yours got lost in it. Danny gently chided his twin. Danny swallowed thickly and nodded. I can see tears glistening in the corner of her eyes. Which leads me to my next question. How did you find Tim? Danny laughed. It was a full and genuine laugh that seemed to relieve some of the tension that had settled in the room. Well, funny story. Once I got to Gotham, I did a basic Google search about my bio parents. I was kind of bummed to find out that they were both dead. And yes, I knew that there was a Tim Drake Wayne, but I kind of figured he was a cousin or something, and I really, really didn't know how to approach that. So I figured that since I was there, I could focus on school and work. A couple of weeks ago, I was on my way home from work when some random goons thought I was Tim. They kidnapped me and contacted the Waynes. The Waynes alerted Batman, who rescued me. Batman realized that I really did look like Bruce Wayne's third son and arranged a meeting. Next thing I know, I have a brother. I turned to Danny. And you, Danny, how did you realize that you were a missing Drake? My latest foster family had enrolled me in Gotham Middle School because that was where my last public school record said I was. All of my classmates would tease me about how much I looked like Tim Drake Wayne. Said I could be his clone or something. Danny, and Tim snorted at her comment. Last week, I snuck out of school and made my way to Wayne Enterprises. As soon as I entered the building, I was ushered to his office. Tim was surprised. He brought me back here to the manor. A few days later, the DNA test came back. Not only was Tim my brother, but so was Danny. Bruce was able to get me away from my latest foster failure. And now I have a wonderful family, finally. And that's what mad scientists have in common with the Lost Drake twins.
Hey, Red, Phantom started with a semi-strained voice. What's up, Phantom? Red Robin turned towards where his brother was floating. He landed on a roof and could actually see a sheen of sweat forming on his brother's forehead. Are you okay? Quick question. The panic button, tracker, and comm that we've been working on specifically for me, are any and or all of them working? I've got the prototypes working. Why? What's wrong? Red asked, growing more and more concerned with Phantom's line of questioning. Do you have any of them with you, like right now, this very moment? I have one of each. Phantom, you're scaring me. What's going on? I need you to give them to me, please, Phantom cried out desperately. Red Robin reached into his pouch and procured the items that Phantom asked about. So, I don't have much time, but I'm going to go poof. I will activate all 3 as soon as I can. Phantom, what do you mean you're about to go poof? Red Robin screeched. The comms in Red's ear went silent. I'm being summoned. And with that, a bright light enveloped Phantom. And like he said, he poofed. He was gone. Red Robin, report. Batman grunted out. Phantom, gone. Red Robin wheezed out. Hood is closest to his location, and I can reroute him and have him there in 2 minutes. Oracle chimed in. Batman grunted.
Already on it. I have visual.
Hood had already been in motion the moment he realized what Phantom meant when he said he was about to go poof.
Replacement.
Hood yelled at the other vigilante and got no response.
Red Robin.
Finally, he got an acknowledgement.
I need you to breathe with me. In for 5, hold for 7, out for 5, in for 5, hold for 7, out for 5, in for 5, hold for 7, out for 5.
Hood repeated this cycle for several minutes until he heard the roar of the Batmobile behind him.
Red Robin, come on. You back with me?
Red Robin nodded numbly. Hood sighed.
Okay, kid, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a harness and lower you to the Batmobile, okay?
Red Robin nodded again. Hood got to work using the cape of Red Robin and the grapple line of both of their grappling hooks. It was a shoddy patchwork job, but it would hold until they got to the ground. Batman and Robin were there waiting and took Red Robin and placed him in the back seat. He was still barely functional.
I'll meet you back at the cave.
Batman grunted, but the Batman and Robin jumped into the Batmobile and vanished into the night. Hood used his bike's auto-navigation feature to summon to him so he could make his way back to the cave. By the time he got back, Alfred was fussing over the nearly catatonic Tim. Bruce was being his emotionally constipated self. Dick was fluttering about. Damien was scowling in the corner. Steph and Cass were both curled up on a couch, holding onto each other. Everyone looked at Jason as he approached the medbay where Tim had been taken to be looked over. Jason, report. Bruce finally snapped out. Phantom was summoned. Fortunately, he managed to get the calm tracker and panic button from Tim just before he disappeared. Jason replied succinctly. Tim wheezed, and Dick rushed into the medbay to re-calm Tim down. Hey guys, Steph called from the Bat computer. Phantom's everything just activated. Everyone rushed out to see where the hell he'd been summoned to. Nanda Parbat. He'd been summoned by Ra's al Ghul. What the fuck? Phantom stepped through the portal in all of his kingly regalia. He looked around the room in interest. He'd never been summoned to a place like this. It was occasionally high school girls' rooms late at night when they were having a sleepover. More than likely, it was a cult who wanted world domination or something along those lines. And they almost always got the summoning circle wrong. Made his mouth taste like the time he had to eat Dash Baxter's underwear. This summoning circle was still wrong, but at least his mouth only tasted like he'd eaten a 2-day-old moldy ham sandwich, which, ew, but still, better than most. He was in a cave-looking room. There was a familiar pool next to him. He glanced down at the summoning circle, and yep, Pariah Dark's name was etched in the runes. And, oh, there was no binding circle. Cool. Wait, did they use a blood sacrifice? Double ew. And why were there ninjas all around him? Granted, the ninjas were kind of cool, but ninjas were so last century. And why did they all feel liminal? And someone was talking to him about living forever and eternal youth. Whoa, hold up, I'm gonna stop you right there, Phantom said while holding up a hand. As he brought his hand up, he managed to activate his panic button, his tracker, and put his comm in his ear while also activating it. The man talking to him looked absolutely offended. The ninjas all tensed and put their hands on their swords. Phantom took a moment to really look at the man. He was dressed in a green and gold robe. He had black hair with a white stripe around the base of it. His eyes were green, almost as green as his. He appeared to be in mid-50s. And suddenly, it clicked for Phantom. He was in the League of Assassins, and the man was the leader. No wonder he gave off total Fruit Loop vibes. But worse. Like Fruit Loop Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. He looked to his left, and yep, that must be the famous Lazarus Pits, or one of them. And yep again, they were totally sewer water, run off from the Infinite Realms. Oh wait, Fruit Loop was talking at him again. Great and mighty Pariah Dark. Not Pariah Dark, my dude. A scowl appeared on Fruit Loop's face. Where had he seen that scowl before? Phantom was totally going to love being the chaos gremlin he was to this man. At least Vlad had grown somewhat desensitized to Phantom's taunts over the years. Name's Phantom, High King of the Infinite Realms, newly born Ancient of Space, Bringer of Peace, Defeater of the Mad Tyrant, Balance between Life and Death, Chosen of the Realms, Beloved Halfling of Lady Gotham. There was a hiss in his ear. I see, Fruit Loop replied slowly. And you are? Phantom inquired. I am Ra's al Ghul. There was another hiss in Phantom's ear. As I mentioned earlier, I have summoned you, High King Phantom, to grant me immortality and eternal youth. Yeah, I got that, but no can do, Fruit Loop. A third hiss accompanied the name, along with a couple of giggles. Ra's scowled again. Damn, where did Phantom know that scowl from? He would swear that he'd seen it before. And why not? I followed the summoning. Yeah, no, you followed Pariah's summoning. Again, not Pariah, but also what part of Ghost implies that I can grant you immortality? Like, seriously, dude, all souls eventually have to come to me, even you. What are you, a child? Ra's snarled. Yeah, I died when I was 14. Of course I'm a child. Phantom deadpanned. Snorts and giggles sounded off in his ear. Danny had to fight to keep his own face straight, and of course he didn't mention his half-a status. Ra's looked like he was sucking a lemon. You mean to tell me a child defeated the previous Ghost King? He asked in utter disbelief. What, like it's hard? This time his ear was covered in full-belly laughs. He didn't mention that he'd almost died, like all the way, during his fight with Pariah. And he also didn't mention that he'd had help, but this version of the Fruit Loop didn't need to know those particular details. So, if I challenge you, I can become the new king, Ra's asked with a calculative look on his face. Hold on a minute there, Haas, Phantom said, bringing his hands up in a classic timeout motion. The sucking lemon expression was back on Ra's face, and Phantom was going deaf from all the laughter in his ear. Being Ghost King implies a certain state of aliveness, or rather unaliveness, which contradicts your previous request for immortality. And did you miss the whole Chosen of the Realms when I was reciting my titles? Ra's growled, and then drew his sword. He full-on attacked Phantom, who simply turned intangible and stepped out of the summoning circle. This seemed to make Ra's even madder. Ra's signaled for his assassins to attack en masse. So, Phantom, being the feral shit he was, grinned. There was too many teeth in his grin, and his eyes began to glow. He conjured an ice sword, knowing that with all of the ectoplasm in the air, even if it was slightly rotten, he wouldn't be running out of power anytime soon. And then the fight was joined in earnest. And he didn't fight with just his sword. More than one assassin who got too close came away missing a limb or two. Phantom's mouth was bloody, and not because an assassin was lucky enough to get a hit in on him there. Ra's was growing more and more furious by the second. This was not supposed to be how this went. He was Ra's al Ghul, fucking damn it. He was the demon's head. He was supposed to be the most powerful man in the world. Phantom was growing bored. His family informed him that they were less than 5 minutes out. Hey, Fruit Loop, I bet I can really piss you off. There were calls in his ears to not do anything stupid, but by this time, stupid was pretty much his middle name. Raish watched in horror as the Ghost King floated over to the middle of his precious Lazarus pit. He watched as the boy began glowing and the pits began resonating. What in the absolute hell? What was the boy, child, king doing? He was sucking up the pits. No! That was his pit. How would he be able to maintain his youth? But somewhere deep in Raish's soul, he knew that this boy, Phantom, wasn't just sucking up his one pit. A commotion at the entrance of the cave's mouth, housing the pit, caught his attention. Of course, the bats would show up. They watched in horror as well. But Phantom didn't stop. The pits continued to swirl up and into Phantom. After a few minutes, the cave went silent, and all that was left of the pits was a muddy hole. Not a speck of green was left. Danny noticed his family had arrived, but also noticed that he was beginning to not feel so great. He slurred. Red Robin panicked for half a second before he turned to Batman and snapped his cape off the man's back and ran full pelt into the crater. The rest of the bats were right behind him. Phantom began dropping from the air. Red Robin caught Phantom and swaddled the cape around him just as his transformation rings wrapped around him. Red Robin unhooked his own cape and quickly made sure that no part of Danny was visible. Red Robin passed Danny to Hood, who would be better able to carry his brother and run, and then the bats were moving once again. But surprisingly, they were able to leave unimpeded. Granted, that was probably because the assassins were afraid of getting bitten again, and Raish was in too much shock to give an order. So, they made it back to the Batplane without any further issue. The flight back to Gotham was silent as each of the vigilantes processed what Danny had done. Danny moaned. His head felt like it was stuffed full of cotton, and his throat was on fire. He felt like he had the ghost flu again. He would have thought that if his memories didn't come rushing back to him. He groaned again, just for good measure. Tim flicked his head. Ow, what was that for? Danny groused. Because you, dear brother, are an absolute idiot, Tim replied. Here, here, said Jason as he entered the med bay. Hey, Casper, you feeling any better? Not really. That was some really rancid ecto. Again, you're an idiot, brother mine. Tim flicked Danny's head again. Master Tim, don't antagonize your brother in the med bay, said Alfred as he walked in to check on his patient. Yes, Alfred, Tim said without remorse. Alfred raised an eyebrow at that, and Tim looked at him in defiance. Alfred sighed. Master Danny, are you feeling well enough to be released back to your room? Yeah, I would like that. Thank you, Alfred. You're welcome. Jason had to help Danny back to his room as he admitted that his legs felt like jello. By the time they reached the elevator, Jason decided it was best to just carry Danny since he was practically a limp noodle anyways. Jason chuckled at Danny's protest. Tim flicked Danny's forehead a third time. When they got to his room, they had a veritable audience. Dick, Bruce, and Damien had joined Jason and Tim. Danny, does being summoned happen often? It hasn't happened since I've been living here with you guys, Danny hedged. Danny, Tim said flatly. Tim. Danny answered the question. Danny deflated. Besides being summoned by the Justice League, the last time I was summoned was about 2 months ago. All in all, it took about 10 minutes. Some cultists wanted the usual, kill everyone and take over the world. Danny! Everyone in the room exclaimed. And why didn't we hear about this? Bruce finally asked. If you're asking we as in the bats, it's because it wasn't in Gotham. I think it was somewhere in Star City. It might have been Jump City, I forget. What? Another in unison exclamation. Danny shrugged and rubbed the back of his neck. Tim facepalmed. Bruce, Dick, and Jason all just sighed. How many times and where are you summoned? Tim asked, pulling out a laptop out of somewhere. Right after I became Ghost King, I was summoned, a lot. Apparently, since Pariah was locked in the sarcophagus of forever sleep, he couldn't be summoned, which is a good thing. But once the title passed to me, all of the summons caught up to me. Danny actually looked sheepish. That still doesn't answer the question. Tim chastised. I can't give you the answer you're wanting. I never usually keep track. Mostly because it's so random. Usually at night, sometimes it's like high school sleepovers. Those are usually fun. Most of the time, it's some random cult wanting me to destroy the city they're in. Destroy the world, or give them the power to destroy the world. Which, really sucks. I'm a protector spirit. I couldn't give them that kind of power even if I wanted to. Because the high schoolers really just want, company or something. The 5 others in the room collectively sighed. What even was his life? Not even the Bat Colony was as complicated as Danny's seemed to be. Question. Do we have to worry about Raish summoning you again? Jason asked worriedly. Not really? Danny posed the statement as a question. Once a person or group summons me, they leave something like an imprint or signature behind, so I can tell who is summoning me. And that person or group can't be within a certain radius of the summoning circle, although I can't tell you the exact distance. That means if they've summoned me before and it was someone that I didn't like, I can refuse the summon. I can't refuse the initial summon. Danny, I think we need to talk about an internal permanent tracker, Tim suggested. I wouldn't be opposed. I know better than most. The summonings don't always go as planned. Plus, the GIW is still out there. I'm not stupid enough to believe that just because they've been officially disbanded doesn't mean that they've given up. Agent Alpha, Agent K, and Agent O were especially nasty. Do you know who they were? No, I never saw them outside of their suits, Danny replied, with a sigh of his own. What was the nicest summoning you've attended? Damien asked. Oh, that one's easy. It was the one done by the sad trenchcoat man, Danny said happily. Sad trenchcoat man? Jason parroted back. Yeah, the one who summoned me for the Justice League. He actually got my summoning circle right, and he's the first one to do so. The only thing that could have been improved was if he'd offered a cookie or something, but otherwise, 9 out of 10 would recommend. Danny, do you mean Constantine? Dick wheezed out. There was no way he could be talking about the con man. Oh, was that his name? All I really remember about him, besides him being the sad trenchcoat man, was that he was maybe British. Yep, Danny was totally describing Constantine. It took Jason all of 3 seconds to process before he devolved into full-on belly laughing. Sad trenchcoat man was the perfect way to describe Constantine. And the next time he saw the man, Jason was going to call the con man that to his face. Tim, Dick, and Bruce were soon laughing with him. Damien quirked his lips up, even if he refused to laugh. Danny yawned, and the others took that as their signal to let him rest. Danny reached out to grab Tim's sleeve. Tim turned back and slipped into the bed with Danny with a sigh. Danny had had a few bad nightmares during the last few days while he'd been recovering from being summoned by Raish, and Tim knew that Danny still didn't want to be left alone. Tim didn't exactly blame Danny. Being the Ghost King was nothing but a front, but underneath, he was still a scared 16-year-old. Danny settled next to Tim, and it didn't take either of them long to fall asleep. Notes. Clark. So, Bruce. Tim. Twins? Danny and Danny. Snort guggling. Sure, let's go for that. Danny. I could be a clone or something. Raish. Pariah. Phantom. Nope. Raish. What? Phantom. He's in nap time. I'm king now. Raish. You're a child. Phantom. Yep, a gremlin child. Proceeds to bite assassins attacking him. Phantom. By the way, I'ma really piss you off. Bats on comms. Don't be stupid. Phantom. Too late. Danny. I don't feel good. Tim. I wonder why, you absolute dipshit. Jason. I'm so calling Constantine sad trenchcoat man from this day forth. You can't stop me.